Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston. He is your host, Jacob Boyers. Jacob, the Cats finally back from Nashville, go down there, win one game against Oklahoma, thanks to an Otega Owe buzzer beater. Lose the next game by 29 to Alabama. Just a roller coaster of emotions on the streets of Broadway for many of reasons for a lot of people. Alcohol might have been some, Cats for the others. What'd you think about the Cats overall the weekend in Nashville?
As disappointing as Friday night was, with not having Lamont Butler for other than 8 minutes of your combined two games, I thought it was overall kind of positive. I don't know. It's kind of tough to say that with a 30-point loss, but you absolutely had to win Thursday night. They tried like hell to give it away. Otega saves the day. And then Friday, we've seen it time and time again. It's just not a good matchup with Alabama whatsoever. We don't have an answer for Sears and their other guards, and we're just never going to match up well with them. So even though I picked them to beat Bama, all in all, I say just record-wise, going 1-1, I think was somewhat of a positive, especially without having Lamont.
Yeah, and well, the good news is that, with the draw of the tournament, we wouldn't have to face Alabama until the Final Four if we were to get that far. And hopefully by then, we've got a little bit of momentum built up. But just talking about the Oklahoma game, like you mentioned, the team tried to give it up. We were up 10 points with a minute and a half left.
Crazy.
And then you have to have a buzzer beater to win the game. I was going through just the roller coaster of emotions, man. If we would have lost that game, I don't know what this podcast would have been like. I don't know if I would have been here. You might have had to have done this one solo.
It would have been tough. You were obviously down there. I'm going to be honest. It was a little tougher for me. I still had to be up at 6 a.m. for work on Friday and get the kids to daycare. But so when that thing didn't start till 10:48 or whatever, I was dreading it. I was fighting through it, but kind of dozed off here and there. But yeah, just completely gave it away. And then I almost thought about just completely going to sleep when we were up 12 with 2 minutes. Like, a team doesn't lose that. And then all of a sudden a shot with 5 seconds puts you down a point. And it's just, I was one pissed off that I stayed up because I was like, I can't believe I'm going to be extremely exhausted tomorrow at work just to watch this team blow a 12-point lead in 2 minutes. But Otega, it's unreal what he did in the two games against Oklahoma. 28 and 27 points in 2 game winners. Like, just against your former team, to do it against anybody, but to do it twice against your former team, unreal.
Yeah, just for Otega's sake, I wouldn't mind if Oklahoma was the first round of, the NCAA bracket, because he'd go for damn near 30, just like he has in both games. But, even think about the other guys in this game. Kobe Brea was really good as well. Just seeing him be able to score alongside of Otega, because it seemed like, especially as of late, the two can't really score at the high-level clip together. And it seemed like this was the first one where they both scored, in the flow of the offense where both of them could get their own.
Yeah, and both, really efficient. Kobe went 8 for 12 from the field. Otega 8 of 14, but 2 of 3 from behind the arc, and 9 of 10 from the free throw line. They were essentially your entire team. We can talk about a couple of the other guys real quick, but like, I thought both games down there, like, Amari played really bad. I'm hoping that was just kind of a, get that out of the way, get ready to go here on Friday. But if you tell me like Amari's going to be really bad in both games, I tend to think we struggle with both of them, and we kind of obviously did with Oklahoma, but pulled it out and then got ran by Bama. But if it wasn't for Otega and Brea, you're obviously not winning the Oklahoma game, and I thought they did a lot of really good things Thursday night.
And just speaking on Amari Williams down there this weekend, if you told me going in from Amari and Lamont, we had 9 points combined from both of them, and only 3 rebounds from Amari, just wasn't a factor in the whole tournament down there. I wouldn't have told you we were making it to that second game. So it was good to see, we found other ways to at least win that game. Because Oklahoma got a 9 seed. They're obviously tournament worthy. So it's good to see us at least, knock off that rust of winning a game in the SEC tournament. But I am a little a little worried about Amari Williams. This is the first time he's been in, that bigger spotlight to say for a tournament. Obviously, tournaments with Drexel are not the same as the SEC tournament. And he really didn't respond either game.
Yeah, I mean, it is weird because like I do agree he didn't play good, but like I think part of what we're holding him to, like Friday, I mean, he still had 16 points and 7 boards, so like there is a sense of just like there's this standard that we held Amari to based on how he's played in SEC play, right? So like it's a testament to him. Yeah, I mean, he obviously played somewhat better Friday night. We both talked. It was kind of hard for us to completely pay attention to the game. You were, down in the bars at Nashville getting rowdy, and I was up here at Dickman's, kind of doing Nashville in the north. But I mean, Amari still was, I mean, second leading scorer on the team Friday, but I agree, it just didn't feel like he really at any time kind of took over like we kind of had needed him. And in part, he might have looked a little worse because you got really bad play from the rest of your guards. Like, part of what makes Amari kind of go is when he's finding the guards cutting or, hitting open shots, and, he's able to kind of get that clear out a little bit. And part of it, when Ortega and Kobe Brea then come back and combine for 16 points after, 50 the night before, it's going to probably make everybody on the team look a little worse.
Yeah, I just love to get some consistency from this team. I mean, like, is anybody consistent as of late? I mean,
it was Amari for a long time, and
Amari for a long time. Ortega for 20-something games to start the year, and then he goes on his, skyrocket up against Oklahoma and then crashing down against Bama, and then does it again here. Literally the same exact teams one night before the other. This one, I mean, he did get punched in the face and, bleeding a little bit. So I'll give him a little bit of a pass on this one. But, man, I mean, can we get just like a fully healthy game? I mean, even like leave Jackson out of it, leave Kerr out of it, just the guys that we have. Can I just have, Lamont get his normal 30 minutes, Kobe get his normal 36, Amari not in foul trouble? I just want the guys that we have that are healthy, that we expect to play on the court. Because if I do, I think we're at the least in the Sweet 16, and then really anything can happen.
No, I agree with you. I said it before we talked about, the SEC tournament. Like, this team, if healthy, even without Jackson, like, can still make some noise in March and make a run. But it's all obviously going to depend on health at this point. And the thing about Lamont that sucks was that was such a good basket at a time. Like, we kind of had it. Oklahoma's making a run at the first half, and he drives to the lane and doesn't shy away from the contact and makes a good layup, and then doesn't come back into the game. But as far as the consistency, I don't know. How much do you put into the fact that, they played the night before until, 1 a.m. Eastern, midnight, Central, and I know you had the whole day off, but I mean, Bama hadn't played, in a week before that, but that's part of, why the regular season matters so much, and you do everything you can to get a top 4 seed and not have to play Thursday. So, but I do think that could have been part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put too much stock in it. When you go down there, you're planning on playing, especially when you're playing on Thursday, you're planning on playing 4 games and hopefully playing for the SEC championship on Sunday. So I don't put too much, stock into that. Obviously, I mean, some of the guys could have been fatigued, and obviously, like Kobe played 37 minutes the night before, didn't look his best, the next night out, playing 33 minutes and only having 8 points. So you saw a little bit of fatigue in his, especially for a guy like him who relies on his legs for his jumper. For guys like that, I understand. But for guys who kind of play, under the basket, not really a shooting type, like, Amari Williams. I mean, like we said, he played better on Friday. Still, it's just like you can never get the guards and the bigs to play well in the same game. It never happens. I mean, in Friday's game, you get 18 and 16 from Andrew and Amari, and then you just get nothing from Kobe and Ortega. And it just, I mean, it's not like a broken record. It literally happens every single game.
Yeah. I think the most frustrating thing for me Friday night was the fact that we only took 19 threes. Like, when you're playing Alabama and, like, that pace, like, we gotta hoist shots. I mean, I really don't care who's shooting them, I'd like to see Kobe, he was the only one that felt like wanted to shoot them. He shot 7 of your 19, like, but we gotta get some guys that'll just take more high volume shots from behind the arc, especially in a game against a team like Alabama where even if you play your best defensive game, you're probably holding them right at 90 points, best case scenario. So like that was the most frustrating thing for me.
Say somebody who's still not afraid to shoot, and I don't know when the last time he made one was Trent Noah, 0 for 4 from 3. And
Somebody's
maybe
got to shoot it.
he's getting open looks right now. They're not really contested. It's not like he's pulling up like he did from in that Tennessee game, from the E. I mean, he's getting open looks, and he's not making them. I mean, just think about that. Those were all 4 open, nice, easy buckets. Obviously, in this game, we were lost by 29, so that 12 points really doesn't matter. But when you're talking about, playing Troy or playing, Illinois State, Texas, Xavier, whichever team wins out that way, I mean, 4 open threes, he's got to be able to capitalize on some of those.
Yeah, and we've talked multiple times, like, part of, him and Perry being out there is, you're going to take open threes, but, like, we need you to make them. Like, that's why you're there. So I agree. I don't know what the issue is. I mean, the other eye-opening part was, like, Travis Perry led all guards in scoring with 11. Like, you tell me that happens, I'd probably tell you we lose by 30 like they did. So, yeah, I mean, just definitely not the best game from Elway and Brea in a game that you probably needed them to be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, especially like you mentioned, going against a guy like Mark Sears, who, I mean, really even in this game, didn't have a crazy game. Obviously, he didn't play as much as he normally would because of the lead that they built up. But you mentioned it off air. I mean, we were down 7 at half. It didn't feel like this game was going, was away from us. You're at, without Lamont, down 7 at half. You felt pretty good about where you were at.
Yeah.
And then just get the brakes beaten off of you in the back 20.
Yeah, it was, but like you were down 7, but also like kind of in the grand scheme of things, it was probably a pretty bad sign because like you were down 7, you were really kind of playing, I don't want to say as well as you could have, but like also Bama missed so many good looks in the first half, and then that was the difference in the game. In the second half, they went out and just made them. If they shot a similar percentage first and second half, you probably lose each half by 20 plus, but you're able just to kind of tread water a little bit because they were missing so many open looks.
Yeah, I mean, they were 2 of 13 from 3 in the first half, and then 9 of 16 from 3 in the second. So, I mean, I'm just there just to build on your point. They really started knocking down those shots, and like you mentioned, we weren't hitting threes. We weren't shooting threes. It's hard for us to come back playing the twos with, Amari and Andrew Carr scoring down low when Alabama can just hit threes on us at will.
Yeah, again, when you're playing a team like Alabama or, honestly, like our draw in the tournament's not terrible, but like, if you play Illinois on a night they're hot, I mean, they can go for 85 plus. Like, you're gonna need your guards to be your leading scorers. Like, I don't know if you can beat a high level offensive team with, Amari Williams being your leading scorer. We're gonna need Owe or Brea to have one of those nights where they're getting 25 plus.
Yeah, and really the only game I think we can probably win in this tournament with Amari being the leading scorer is probably this first game against Troy.
You might be able to beat Tennessee.
That would maybe. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Outside of, Alabama beating Kentucky 3 times in a row, usually, it's very hard to beat a team 3 times, especially once in the postseason.
I agree.
Hopefully, we're talking about that this time next week because, I'd love it. And more than likely, that means, there's a possible chance I beat my girlfriend's team, which that's just bragging rights for my entire life, and I'll just use them until the end of time. But any other comments on the Cats' time in Nashville? I know, obviously, we wanted to make sure we got at least that first win because it's been a while. Did it make you feel any better or any worse than when we started the week?
I feel slightly worse, but not because of the performance. It's all because of Lamont's, uncertainty. I know they, Pope said they got the best possible news and they're gearing like he's going to play this weekend. But it's just how much more limited would he be? We really, I guess, won't find out until Friday night when you kind of watch him. Is he going to be the Lamont he was kind of starting to play like towards and, played earlier in the year? Or is he going to be back to that very limited guy that we saw in, the A&M game and the first Alabama game where he just didn't look right? So fingers crossed, you're getting something more that, you saw middle of the season rather than during that stretch.
I personally think just at this point in the season, I mean, this has been the topic for, 15, 20
Yeah.
games straight, it feels like. He's not been at 100%. If he is, he's not playing well. Bad thing is there's just no other options at this point. You don't have Jackson to play the point to, give him that break or whatever. But, I mean, I just, like Pope said earlier in the year when Jackson went out, at least he's out.
Yeah.
And he makes the team a lot better. I'm not trying to despite that. But I also just want to see what these guys do when they know they have to step up without Lamont Butler. I want to see if they're able to do. I know
we've seen it. We've
I
seen
know
it.
it happened at Alabama, but we're
Well,
also
not just that.
talking about the 2 seed. I'm more talking about this is a game against Troy. I mean, they were 23-10 in the Sun Belt. They won the Sun Belt Conference. Give them their credit. Kentucky should win this game pretty easily. If Kentucky's up well at halftime, gets off to a good start, I don't want to see Lamont much in the second half. I want to get him ready for that next game, whether it be Xavier, Texas, or Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree if, you go out and kind of, run them for the first, 25, 30 minutes of the game. I agree with you, but you better lock it up. Like, this is not the time to, like, cross your fingers and hope that Travis Perry can go out and play 30 great
I'm not picking on Travis.
I mean, even Lamont at 70%, I'm going to take that over, the other options at this point.
Yeah, I mean, luckily or unluckily for us, it's just that the next options are just so tremendously down the depth chart of what we imagined at the beginning of the year. I mean, but it's a team that we're stuck with at this moment. Win or lose, I mean, we're going to have to ride with these guys. Obviously, we're facing Troy on Friday night, 7:10. Overall thoughts before we dive a little bit deeper into the Troy Trojans?
No, yeah, I'm happy we got to live that, Otega game Thursday night. That was a lot of fun. As fun of a game as a UK
Wasn't
fan.
fun for me, man. Up 10 points with a minute and a half left.
Yeah, but I don't care. Once you win on the buzzer beater, everything else goes out the window. Honestly,
I'm good. I'd rather not have the buzzer beater and just win by 8 instead.
I mean, that's gonna live up there as like a top 10 moment of just that. Because I mean, we all thought it was over. We were dead in the water.
I don't know. Did you see that Oklahoma defense? He went coast to coast with nobody touching him at any point.
It's true.
With no defense or anything.
It's true, but
genuinely, in my state right there, in my, checkered overalls, I think there was a good chance that I could make that, court to court in 5 seconds with the layup.
Yeah. But no, I'd take it. Just happy we got that one Thursday night and, burn the tape on Friday and let's go make a run here.
Yep. The run starts with Troy, like we mentioned, 7:10 on Friday. Anything in particular you're looking for in this game? Are you looking at somebody in particular? Seeing, obviously, outside of Lamont, we want to see if he's healthy, if he's 100%. We've already talked about that a little bit. Outside of him, who are you looking for to really take over in this game to get us to the next round?
This one, it's just kind of one of those games. Honestly, I don't care who plays well. Just go win, go handle business, and get ready for Sunday. This is the kind of game that Otega can take over. We saw it earlier in the year when we were playing, a lot of these Troy level kind of teams. That's when he was. I mean, he played really well all season. I'm not going to act like he didn't, but that's when you could really kind of see him dominate a game. I think he'll be pretty well assertive. I'd like to see Kobe kind of continue to shoot the ball well. I know he didn't on Friday night, but just like to really let's just make this kind of a feel-good game. Kentucky opened as a 10.5-point favorite. They're now up to 11.5. Vegas is kind of leaning on the Cats to roll a little bit here, and I think they do. And I think, to your point, hopefully you come out, kind of roll them in the first half, can get a good early lead there in the second half, and rest Lamont, maybe even rest Andrew Carr. We saw him on the bike Friday night trying to stretch his back.
He's always on the bike, though.
Yeah,
that's
just try to get out of there as healthy as possible, and get ready for Sunday. I don't want to act like I'm overlooking Troy, because we have had some we have had some experiences in this state over the last 3 years, but I mean, I know I said, I would be absolutely flabbergasted if this is like a game with 2 minutes to go. I really would. I think Kentucky can just out athleticism and find a way to win this game. Mark Pope also didn't. I know we had some like tough first halves early in the year against these teams, but even then we always kind of blew them out in the second half. So just
Yeah, I mean, you're scaring me with a little bit of the phrasing that you're using because I'm just getting flashbacks to last year where you're like, "This is a game with 2 minutes."
I mean, yeah, but then with
I'd be
the
shocked.
yeah,
And here we are now talking about that again.
it's true.
But I mean, I don't want to overlook Troy. I honestly just want to see everybody do their part in this game. I don't want to see it have to be, Otega scores 27 and has a buzzer beater. I don't want to have to see it be Kobe Bryant score 30.
No.
I don't need to see it being an Amari triple double. I just want everybody to do their part, play well, get some cohesiveness as a unit. Because, like Pope mentioned, I mean, these guys have played like the least together, almost out of what was it, like minute usage continuity,
Yeah.
I think is the phrase that he used. We're like one of the bottom teams in the country. Just get used to playing with each other in a big moment, in a win or go home game. Everybody do your part. Everybody feel good and get ready for the game on Sunday. Not overlooking Troy by any means. I mean, we got some good guys. I mean, they're out rebounding their team, the opponents, 6 boards every game. So we're gonna have to crash the glass. Obviously, we're looking for Amari and Andrew to help out on that, and even your guy, Brandon Garrison.
Yeah. I mean, BG, this should be a better game, but yeah, I mean, just hey, how about that? We went, I mean, what, 20 minutes without mentioning, and I didn't say a single word about BG, so we'll just gonna move on. We're all positive vibes from here on out, thinking about a run.
Yeah, the good thing I actually like about this game is Troy only shoots 29% from 3 on the year. And so far in this season, the teams that have really given Kentucky trouble are teams that shoot well and from volume from 3, like Florida, like Alabama, obviously, Auburn, I mean, even Missouri. I mean, teams that shoot well and at a high clip. I feel really good about this game just based on the style that we play. And even if we get to the point where we do have to lean on like an Amari to go get you a down low bucket or Andrew Carr, I feel well trading those twos, unlike I do with the matchup against Alabama.
Yeah, I agree completely. The one thing though is I'm gonna go ahead and make a prediction now. They will shoot better than 29% because
100%.
everybody at any time, and they'll probably have a guy on their team that's shooting like 18% on the year, and he's gonna go 3 for 4. So like, just get ready for it.
I make 9 threes and have a G League career just out of one game.
I still believe Kentucky will roll.
Yeah, I do too. Obviously, we're going to talk about Kentucky's bracket because I actually really like the bracket draw that they got. I think it's actually very favorable for the Cats. Just looking at it, obviously our 1 seed is going to be the Houston Cougars. Gonzaga's in there as the 8, Georgia at the 9. Obviously, Clemson, who we lost to earlier in the season, at the 5. Illinois, Purdue. Obviously, we got to play Troy, and then you're looking at Tennessee, Wofford, UCLA, and Utah State. I really think this is a good draw for the Cats. Probably the best they could have gotten, just looking at the other 2 seeds around the bracket.
I agree completely, and I mean, if you're healthy, I know that's what everything's going to kind of hinge on for me. But if you're healthy, I mean, there's a very manageable path to the Elite 8 here. You beat Troy. I'm kind of leaning towards you're going to play Texas in that second round, but I personally would love it. Give me a rematch against it. Like, we know what Texas is. We know we can beat them.
I just don't want Travis Perry guarding Trey Johnson. That's going to keep me.
That's part of it. You get Lamont back, hopefully, and I feel good. I mean, it took just an all-around collapse for us to blow that down there. Everything that went wrong in the final 4 minutes that could go wrong went wrong. So I would love another shot at Texas. But yeah, Illinois doesn't really scare me. I mean, they do have that one guy that I can't pronounce his name, but he can get crazy hot. But I mean, he's also shot them out of a million games this year. So I feel good. I think it's as good of a draw. Tennessee always chokes. I think there's a very good chance they don't even make it to the Sweet 16. I told you before we came on air, nothing pisses me off more than watching Tennessee basketball because everybody just they talk about how great of a defense it is. All they do is foul every single play. And you're going to turn the ball over on a full court press when they got 3 guys grabbing your arm and pulling at you, and the SEC officials are just letting them play football out there. So it's going to be a tighter whistle in the tournament. They're not going to get all that, and yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they're going in the round of 32.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope, because obviously it's going to be tough to beat them 3 times in a row, just based on, each time we've played them. For the most part, we've been a little healthier than we are now.
Yeah.
But just looking at the bracket, obviously we both would have the Cats winning over Troy. You would have us playing Texas. I do as well, which is part of the problem. Normally, if you and I agree on something, it's going to go
Yeah,
completely
that's true.
way. And it seems to keep happening. But I would have Tennessee beating Utah State, which would obviously have a Kentucky-Tennessee Sweet 16. I think you had something a little different, though.
Yeah, I have UCLA beating Tennessee, so I got Cats UCLA there in the Sweet 16, and I feel like last time we played them in the Sweet 16, we had a heck of a game. That was the De'Aaron Fox. What do you have, 39 or?
9.
Yep. So
Still
yeah,
got drafted below Lonzo.
I'd take another Sweet 16 with the Bruins.
I just want to. You're going to get me off on a side tangent there. But imagine getting 39 dropped on you, and he just dominates Lonzo in every way, and you're the Lakers at 2, and you're just like, you know what? Still give me Lonzo.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen it their entire career. I don't think there's one team in the league now, looking back on it, that would say we would take Lonzo over De'Aaron Fox, even if Lonzo was fully healthy.
You know one person who would?
Who? LeVar?
LeVar Ball. There's the one person on the planet that still would.
That's true.
But let's go into the top of our bracket here. Obviously, we both have Houston advancing. That Georgia-Gonzaga game, I think that'll be a really good game. Who do you have winning that one?
I actually have Georgia. There's a lot of talk. I know, Gonzaga's like top 10 in the net. I've watched Gonzaga quite a bit this year. Obviously, we played them. I've always kind of felt like they're slightly overrated. Their net rankings always get boosted every year because they're playing, worse competitions. But, I mean, they even struggled at times in conference play this year. Like, that's not the dominant Gonzaga that goes and loses 3 or 4 games in conference or in non-conference and then just runs through their conference play. I mean, I think Georgia, I was very surprised that Georgia lost to Oklahoma. I think Georgia, I just think they're the better team, and I think they get this one.
Yeah. The only part that I'm worried about that was, and why I picked Gonzaga to win this game, is like you mentioned with Tennessee and the SEC refs. Georgia's a very physical team as well. And I think depending on the officiating crew they get, how tight that whistle is. I mean, you saw Gonzaga's ability to knock down free throws. Felt like they knocked down, a couple hundred against us with Nembhard and those guys. So for that reason, I would pick Gonzaga to win this game. I will tell you what, though, in the 5-12 matchup in the 4-13, in the round of 32, I got McNeese and High Point.
I got McNeese beating Clemson. I think they're really good. And weird, situation around them with the whole coaching thing. Like, Will Wade's been very transparent up until this point, telling his team, like, hey, I'm taking other calls. Like, I am looking at other jobs. Accepts the NC State job today. Whereas, like, I think it almost benefits his team. Like, they know this is our last run. It's not kind of lingering like you see with a lot of coaches that are like half in, half out. Like, I think he wants to make this run and kind of pretty much have one last ride with his guys, and he's told them that up front rather than trying to hide it and give, the coach speak we always hear of, I'm 100% committed to McNeese, and then a day later they're out the door. So, High Point, I know everybody's predicting them over Purdue. That's the pick. I don't know why, but I think Purdue kind of rolls. I know High Point scores a lot, but it's almost like Kentucky. Like, they're using Purdue's past experiences and almost just pretty much guaranteeing that the 13 seed's going to kind of get the win here.
Yeah, and just talking to that point about McNeese State, just the total opposite way of how you normally think about things.
Yep.
And if you're a player at McNeese State, I mean, some of those guys, obviously we saw guys like Ansley leave from Fairleigh Dickinson to go to UK, and Amari Williams go from Drexel to UK. A lot of these guys, they're probably not going to have that option. This is going to be their one NCAA tournament appearance. Why not give it your all and leave it out there for your coach who's going to be there and one who was transparent with you in that? So, I would have McNeese State winning that game and going to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think when I filled my bracket out, I got Purdue there, but I mean, I could see McNeese knocking off Purdue. I think Will Wade's just a really good coach. Like he was obviously extremely good at LSU, had them ranked in the top 10 a couple different times. Like, everything he got in trouble for at LSU is now all completely legal. I mean, the
Yeah.
guy's just won everywhere he's been. VCU, Chattanooga, now McNeese. Like for a young guy, he's by far one of the best up and coming coaches, and I think he's going to go kill it at NC State after this.
Yeah, and I'm just glad he didn't, come back to the
I am
SEC in
too. Yeah.
some sort of fashion because those games were not easy against LSU while he was there in that tenure.
Yeah.
So it looks like, in the part of the bracket that we have left, I have Kentucky playing Tennessee. You have them playing UCLA. I'd have the Cats moving on over Tennessee. You
Yeah,
have
there we go.
you have Kentucky versus UCLA. What would you have?
Yeah, I would have Kentucky. I got Kentucky advancing to the Elite Eight as well. Now, let me say, if they do play Tennessee, like that Friday in um,
It's in Indy, right?
Indianapolis, yeah, that
Yeah.
is going to be insane. Kentucky,
I might take you with me.
Tennessee, like
2 hour ride. Let's go.
absolutely insane, and you know, you just can't lose to Tennessee in the Sweet 16. Like everything on paper, like if you tell me this team before the bracket came out went to the Sweet 16, I would obviously say it's a huge success. But you can't go to the Sweet 16 and lose to Tennessee. Like I couldn't take it.
I mean, especially like sometimes it's not even about when you lose, but it's more
Yeah.
who you lose to.
Well, that
Especially a team you had beaten twice already in the season. With the injuries that you'd already had, you just feel like you'd have to win that game, especially in Indianapolis. Being so close to Lexington,
and
can't lose that one.
you would give Tennessee their second Elite Eight ever. Like we can't be doing that. Like
Can't have that.
no.
Can't, especially if they were to somehow, in that theory, knock off Houston and go to a Final Four. You don't want to be on that stepping stone to
No.
their only Final Four.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and part of me does want it to be Tennessee just because I think that Friday would be so fun. But like, then you better go win it.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, we both would have Houston and Kentucky in the Elite Eight for this game. And unfortunately, this is where I would pick the Cats' run to come to an end. I'd have Houston advancing in this one.
I do too. Houston's my national champion pick this year. Feel like
Spoiler alert, man! We
I
got
know,
like 2
I
more
know.
minutes of the
Well,
podcast. What are we doing here?
yeah, we'll get back and recap it, but I mean, I think they're really really good this year, and they finally got some offense to help with that defense, and I've seen a lot of people say like this is the one seed that like they would like to get matched up with and be in Kentucky's conference. Obviously, all 4 1 seeds are really really good teams. That's how you get a 1 seed. But I just think Houston is just so good this year, and this is probably the best team Kelvin Sampson's had there, and obviously another really good Hall of Fame level coach. So I think he finally gets to get that one championship.
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally won't have them going that far. Final Four is the farthest that I'll have them going. But jumping over to the West, let's just talk about the two teams you'd have facing off in the Elite Eight. We won't bore you with all the other ones. I'm taking, old Kentucky friend Rick Pitino versus SEC tournament champions, the Florida Gators. Obviously, it looks a little chalk. It's 1-2. But I did mention to you, speaking of an old Kentucky friend, Boogie Fland is back. You mentioned, and I agreed with you, I think that might make this team worse. But I could see them beating St. John's in that round of 32 to get to the Sweet 16. And boy, would it just make me sick.
Especially if Boogie plays. I mean, I know I've been the number one Arkansas hater all year, predicting them to not to make the tournament. Especially if Boogie plays, this team will not beat Kansas. All the good momentum you've had from Nelly Davis the last 2 months, it'll all go right out the window when Cal is force feeding the ball through Boogie Flan, and just the whole chemistry of the team will just be completely off, and you'll see a lot of the stuff that made us pull our hair out when Cal was here. And I just think this year has been an absolute disaster for Kansas. As bad as it's been, they've still been in a better spot than Arkansas for 95% of the season. And I don't think Hunter Dickinson ends his 15-year college career against Arkansas in the first round. I think he finds a way to get one win there.
Man, see, if you wouldn't have put it that way, like Johnston versus John Calipari, now I think I might be pulling for John. That might be like the one person in college basketball you could have thrown out to where now I want Calipari to advance.
No, I mean, but how about Patino? You're like, man, I turned St. John's around. I'm, number 2 seed. We're one of the best, 6 teams in the country. Oh, in the second round, you're either facing John Calipari or Bill Self. Like,
I mean, that's a crazy bracket down there.
yeah.
I mean, just talking about the legendary coaches, and I mean one of the all-time best names. What about the Maryland Crab Five?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Maryland. I got Maryland in the Sweet 16. I think they make a little run there. They make some noise. How about real quick? Can we talk about how bad of a job the committee did making Memphis a 5 seed?
Yeah,
Like, they're the underdog against the 12 seed in Vegas. Like, if that doesn't tell you that this team did not belong as a 5 seed, then I don't know what. Like, they should have been an 8 or a 9. They were. It's unbelievable. But
I mean, you honestly probably could have given that to Louisville of all teams.
I seriously think they got the 2 teams confused, because I do agree, like, Louisville should be a 5 or a 6, and but there's probably there can't be another time where the 12 seed was the betting favorite. There just can't.
I can't imagine one unless barring some big injury to a key player, where that would have really made the difference. But coming out of the West, I got Florida and St. John's. Was that your 2 teams out in the West?
Yep, you said it was the chalk pick. This is the one region I will be going chalk. I don't think Texas Tech's all that. I think St. John's can survive. A lot of people are kind of starting to get a little feisty with UConn. Like, I've watched UConn all year. They're at no point did they turn into a different team. They got absolutely destroyed by Creighton Friday night. Like, I think Florida. I don't think UConn beats Oklahoma. And then I think Florida's really good and finds their way to the Final Four after beating St. John's.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Florida goes to the Final Four, and don't want to spoil it. I got Florida as the national champion, so I'm going to spoil mine just like you spoiled yours.
I can see it.
But let's go ahead and go up to the South region. Obviously, Auburn is the 1 seed in this one. Michigan State is a 2. I have Auburn losing in the Sweet 16 and not making it to the Elite 8. I have Texas A&M going to Elite 8 and Michigan State going to the Final Four.
I'm shaking my head because we talk about when we agree on something and it never works. But I also have Auburn losing in the Sweet 16. I do have it to Michigan, though, rather than A&M. So probably my biggest upset is Michigan over Auburn, but I also have Yale over A&M. I think we've seen it. A&M can't score enough. Yale shoots the 3 ball extremely well. If they're hot making threes, A&M's not going to be able to score enough to keep up with them. So I have that upset pick. And then much like you kind of just said, I have Michigan State beating Michigan in a Big Ten battle, and Michigan State heading back to the Final Four. So we have 3 of the same Final Four teams so far. I know they're not very.
I really don't like this, and I got a bad feeling this might be the case in the next one.
Yeah.
But in the East bracket, obviously Duke's the 1 seed, Alabama the 2. I've got Duke losing pretty early in this one.
Stop.
I have Duke losing to Mississippi State.
Whoa.
I
don't.
Cooper Flag still not at 100%. I don't know if I trust Conkinipple and Malawak to take that team fully on their own. And like I said, depending on the officiating crew you get, it could really benefit the SEC or it really couldn't. But if Duke was to survive that game, I think they get all the way at least to the Elite 8, in which I would have them losing to Alabama. Either way, I don't have Duke going to the Final Four. I
don't either. I have them losing not as early as you, but I do have them losing in the Sweet 16, even at full strength. I really like Arizona to make a run in this bracket. They got guys that obviously have some experience. They played much better down the stretch this year. I watched their entire game against Houston the other night, and even though I had money on Houston, I couldn't left but being impressed again by Arizona. Caleb Love, I mean, we know what he is. He can shoot you into a game, or he can completely or he can completely shoot you out of it. But it feels like he always plays really well in the tournament. I mean, he willed North Carolina to a national championship. I mean, Hubert Davis should be internally indebted and grateful to that man. I think he gets. I mean, he was a big reason for retiring Coach K, and I think he gets Duke again this time, but in the Sweet 16 with Arizona, and I think they make a run to the Elite Eight. And then on the bottom side of the bracket, I got Bama in the Elite Eight. I think BYU makes a little noise, gets to the Sweet 16, and I think that'll be a really fun game, BYU and Bama. But I'll take Bama, and then Bama, Arizona. Honestly, I've been going back and forth on it. I do have Bama return to the Final Four like you do.
So we have the same Final Four.
We do have the exact same Final Four. Do we have the same title game with just different winners? Do you have Houston or Bama?
No, I've got an SEC rematch.
Okay.
So luckily, when you said you're national champion, I knew we weren't going to get that close to it. Okay. But boy, I tell you what, our perfect brackets are going to be going after going through this exercise and seeing how similar we viewed a lot of these games.
Yeah. No, I fully expect my teams that I have kind of making that surprise Elite Eight runs like Michigan and Arizona. I fully expect them both to lose in the first round.
It's usually how it works. You either don't take them to go long enough when you did have that gut feeling, or you use the gut feeling and they lose first round.
Well, when you said Florida, I knew we were going to get pretty similar because I got Florida beating Michigan State and then Houston beating Florida. And the kind of magical run for the Gators.
Over the Tide. High-scoring game. I think it's going to be a lot like that Kentucky-Florida game you saw at Rupp Arena where, 200-plus points are scored. For my tiebreaker, for, my bracket, I got 210 as a score. Yeah. I think it'll be a high-scoring one. They both score in volumes and score in bunches, especially how up and down that pace will get in that theoretical national championship game. I think it'll be a high-scoring one.
Yeah, I had Florida's going to score. They're good enough. It feels like, especially like Final Four, the game does slow down a little bit. Like you kind of see it every year. The teams that score a ton are a little under their average. But like my point this year is like Houston's got some offense to go along with that defense, and they can get into like the mid 80s against really just about anybody. So, I bad at math off the top of my head here, but I mean I could see like an 85-79 game. So what, 164 is what I've kind of been picking in my brackets.
Yeah, you know what? Houston, Schmuston, Cats by 90. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. Obviously, we can try and predict these games to the best of our ability, but obviously we want the Cats going as far as they can for as long as they can. And the whole goal of this entire season, and for Mark Pope coming in this coaching staff, was to first hang banner number 9 and then potentially, go on to hang more and more and just get this dynasty back rolling. You've seen the fire in the fan base. I mean, you see the difference in the ticket prices when you look at all the other regions. The Fiserv Arena out in Milwaukee is $200 plus a ticket. I mean, you look at Rupp Arena for the games with, Auburn and Tennessee and those guys that are down there. I mean, you're looking at, I think you can literally get a ticket for like $7 the last I looked. I mean, you just see the difference when this fan base is really pumped behind these guys. I really hope they stick with them, and I really hope these guys give them something to cheer for.
Yeah, I agree. And, I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. Like, why not? Let's just go on a run. If this team gets to the Elite Eight, I will be kind of throwing a party. Like, with the injuries and everything that they've kind of endured, I do think that's essentially the season for this team. Or, I mean, the ceiling for this team's season. But, I mean, if you make it out of the first weekend, I will view this whole season as a pretty massive success with all the challenges they've gone through.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of challenges in this season. And I think even, when we led up to the season and our preview, we said we probably thought Sweet 16, even without all the injuries, was probably the ceiling for this team.
Absolutely.
So now we're talking about that being the floor, even with all these injuries. I think you look at that as a success already. And, obviously, once we get to these games, we're not going to want to lose, and we're going to look at them differently when we preview them. I mean, I don't want to say I'm fine with the Sweet 16, but that's what we predicted at the beginning of the year being the ceiling for this team. And with the amount of injuries and just things that you've dealt with throughout it, I'd be happy with it. But at the same time, I get greedy the more we win.
Absolutely.
So let's get greedy. Let's get greedy, and let's go win a national championship.
Don't get me wrong. I've talked myself into this team making the Elite Eight, and then once you get there, like who knows? Like on a given night, they can beat Houston. We've seen them beat teams like that, right? And then,
Kobe gets hot.
who knows? Maybe we're both wrong, and you play Duke in the Final Four. Not going to say we've seen that before, but we've seen that before. We'll get Cooper Flag to fall down again 3 times in a Final Four game. Then you get to a championship, and maybe you play, another number 1 seed that you've already beaten throughout the year. So obviously a little different without Jackson, but who knows?
Yeah, and then something we mentioned before the SEC tournament. I think our pathway to win a national championship is still a little easier than it would have been to win the SEC championship. And that's so crazy to say, but just looking at it, if you just took, the highest seeded teams we'd have to beat Troy, then Illinois, Tennessee, Houston, then you have to beat Duke and Florida. I think that's as easy, if not easier, than winning the SEC tournament was, especially when we had to do it in 5 consecutive days.
Yeah, I think to win a national championship, it's probably a little tougher, more games and everything. But like to get to the Final Four, it's probably more manageable to come out of this region and go to a Final Four than to win it in Nashville.
Yeah, you couldn't agree with you more. You got anything else, Jacob, before we sign off of here? Obviously, we got a couple days until the game. Texas and Xavier tip off tonight. I think they probably just tipped off as we were signing off of here.
5-5, I just saw.
Who do you got winning that game before we get off? Texas, obviously. We already talked about it. Brain lapse here for a moment. I got to cheer for Xavier in this game. I actually got to cheer for Xavier in the next game. That way, we could pummel them potentially on Sunday, and I get bragging rights forever. Jacob, last thoughts. Give them to me before I wrap us out.
Just we're here. It's the best time of the year. I know the last 3-ish years it hasn't been great for Kentucky fans. We've been pretty depressed, but regardless, it's here. We don't play till Friday night. Like I'm gonna enjoy all day tomorrow. Off work. I'm off all day Friday. I'm going to indulge in some beverages. I'm going to bet every dollar I have in my DraftKings account, and I'm just going to have a weekend. And we're here. Everybody celebrate accordingly. Watch every game. Sit in front of 3 TVs and don't stop. That's what I'm gonna do, and I love it. I'm so happy we're here. It's like a kid on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, March is here, and it feels so good to be excited about it. Hopefully the Cats take care of business on Friday. Obviously, we'll be here after the games to, update you what happened, previews for next round. If, God willing, we are going to the next round. Let's hope so. Take care of Troy on Friday. Follow the Cats Talk Pod on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter. Boyer's just doing a great job on the Twitter over there. I see him. He's trying to get in some beefs with some local people. He's getting a little feisty over there. So Go ahead, give him a follow. See who he's trying to anger. I think he's been going after Dan Dockich, a little bit of Seth Greenberg.
There's some dumb people on Twitter.
He's getting feisty with a little bit of these people out there. And obviously, we're everywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Yeah. With that being said, let's get a win, Big Blue, and go Cats.
Go Cats, and definitely keep an eye out on the Twitter Friday because I'm gonna, like I said, start drinking about noon before that UK game gets ready to tip. I might be chirping some people. So
I'd love to see it. All right, guys, go Cats.
Go Cats.